JADXecute layer Android.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching laurieWIRED, and in this video I wanted to give you a quick overview and how to use my new tool JADXecute, which is a plugin that's built into the JADX decompiler GUI. So the goal behind this was to kind of mimic the capabilities that IDAPython provides for IDA Pro and try and give this capability of dynamic scripting to APK reverse engineers as they're analyzing a different Android application. So this provides you the capability to import and use your own particular custom Java code and run it on the output of the JADX decompiler output and console right there. So for example, if you wanted to rename variable names or method names automatically, or maybe print all of the class names inside of your APK, or even insert comments automatically, this now provides you the capability to do so. So let's just dive into JADXecute and see a few examples of how it works and how it's actually coded on the back end. This is the GitHub repository. Feel free to take a look and explore all the code here, and even make a pull request if you're interested. But I have a few examples of how to get started with using this on the front page, or even if you take a look at the wiki over here. This should provide you all of the details you need to get going and get started with this, as well as provide you quite a few different code examples. Also, feel free, if you find anything cool that you think others might be interested in using for automating some of their APK analysis, feel free to throw it in the wiki and share your code as well. So if we want to get started with this, you can go over to the latest release page and download that binary, just like you would with the regular JADX binary. This is its own binary right now, since it's built as a plugin into the jadx-gui. So I've already downloaded this, so I'm just going to go ahead and run it and show you guys a few examples. So here we go. And it looks like JADX just like normal, but it's got an extra little icon up here. And I'm going to throw just any APK into here that we can take a look at. And I think the main activity was this one. This was our application subclass. So let's open the JADXecute plugin right now. So what we want to do is we want to go over here and click on the little coffee cup icon so we can open this particular window. And this is where your user code is going to go, actually. So a couple things you want to make sure you're doing when you're using this plugin is you have to implement this UserCodeClass and use this particular name, as well as implement this usercode main, which is going to return a string, which is actually going to be used to populate the console output down here. And any user code that you would like to add can go in between right here. And if you want to, you can even add additional methods down here. Let's say public static void method 2, and you could just do that and insert some extra code here. And maybe if you wanted to call this method, this would be the entry point, but you can insert any method of your choice. So I'm going to actually just get rid of that, and let's look at what we can do to start seeing how we can manipulate this particular APK that I've chosen to take a look at. So why don't we try printing all of the Java code in a class. So while you're using this, feel free to use any of the templates on the right-hand side. I tried to include a lot of templates that might be useful to other reverse engineers while they're taking a look at applications, but make sure you take a look at any comments in here that say update this, and update the respective variable or anything with your particular situation and your code. So what this is going to do is it's going to search for a class name that you can change right here. Let's look at this new application. I'm going to say GNU application is my class name. And it's going to get all of the decompiler code that's associated with this particular application. And then it's going to find your particular class name, and it will get the Java node, which has all of the decompiler information associated with that particular class. It's going to get the string of that, so that's going to be your actual decompiler output that you're seeing on the left-hand side. And it's going to append this to this JADXecute output string, and this string is going to be returned to the console. So if we've done this correctly, all we need to do is update our class name and hit run. And you see it's running, and see it found our class. And this is actually going to show you the same code that's printed out here. So this is just one use case if you're interested. And one thing to note is the console output is based off of the contents of this string variable right here. So if you want to add developer debug statements, feel free to append them to this variable. But if you do like system.out.println, that's not going to be output to the console, so you can just put all your debug statements in this string instead. Also, for the output of the console, if you do some sort of syntax error, this is actually going to show you the error code from the Java VM. So if we run this, and it tried to compile your Java code, it's going to tell you expected semicolon. So that's just one use case. Let's look at another, maybe more interesting one, is print all method names, for example. So what we need to do here is we need to update once more our string with the name of our class. Let's just use the same one, GNU application. And if we want to, we'll hit run, and you can see all of the names of the methods. You see this init one right here is the constructor, actually. And then you have like A, B, C, and this is all of the different method names that you're seeing on the left-hand side. So let's show one more example here, and let's go ahead and rename a class. I'm going to rename this class here. I want to name this something different. So what we want to do is we want to say the class that we want to rename is GNU application. And we come over here, we find our class name, and what do we want to rename it to? This is going to be our new class name right here. So I'm going to say malware. This is a class. And that's an amazing name. And let's run that. And you can see, here we go, it's updated our decompilation. So you can see how this might be really useful if you have, for example, a lot of different variables inside of a class and you want to rename all of them. Or if you want to check the output of the decompilation of classes and rename their respective names based on keywords inside of that decompilation, you could create a script here that will do that and automate that for you. Now, what I finally want to show you is how we can insert a comment automatically. All right, so let's try inserting a comment into a particular method. So I have a template over here that I'm going to start from to insert a new instruction comment. So one thing about this is you may want to just copy and paste this and work this over in another window, and that's totally fine, especially if you would like to save this as a Java file. So let's use this one as an example and save this as our own particular Java file that we can insert into this input once we're done modifying it. So I'm just going to use Notepad++ here, and this is the beginning of our inserting an instruction into a method. So let's look at this B method right here. So I'm going to take a look at this class. So let me copy the class name. And our method name is going to be B. And we want to insert a new comment. And one thing to note about inserting instruction comments is the index of the comment you're inserting is actually going to be based off of the Smalley code. So if we come over here to B and we look at it in the Smalley window, this first spot right here is going to be index 0, and then 1, and then 2, and then so on. So it's actually going to be based on the Smalley index, but it's going to appear inside of the Java code. So let me go back and let's start adding and making our modifications. So I'm going to release a new version of this particular instruction, but what we want to do is we want to find our class name and then find our method name, loop through all of the different methods, and then actually insert the comment once we found this method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this a little bit and I'll release a new version in the GitHub. So let's do this. And you can feel free to make any modifications you would like here. Since I did notice one thing I need to add is .contains, and let's find our particular search method. And if it does contain it, then we'll go to that index and we'll add our comment. So to show you, maybe let's just add a 0 right here to show you that this is going to be index 0. So now I'm going to copy. Actually, let me just save this and I'll show you how to import a Java file. So let's just do insert instruction.java. And we'll do browse. And here we go. So here is our code that we modified so that we should be inserting our instruction into index 0. So we see malware, this is a class, then the Smalley instruction index 0, and then the method name is me. So let's run this and see what happens. All right, so if we close this, there we go. This is inserted at index 0. If we put in index 1, it's just going to overwrite this comment, no problem. So if we want to insert a comment on another line inside of the Java code, what we can do here is, let's see, we're inserting and declaring a new string called OM. So let's go to the Smalley code. Where are we inserting that? Right here, declaring a new string. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think that's 9. So let's go here and we'll just change this. Let me open that one more time. We're going to just change this to index 9 to insert another comment. And there we go, looks like it worked. And this is a new comment 9 on the second line of this method. So that's just one kind of thing because of the way that JADX was coded to kind of keep in mind when you're inserting an instruction comment. Okay, so last thing you might be interested in doing is printing if a particular class extends or inherits from a class of interest. For example, if you wanted to see if you have an application subclass, you could go here and we'll do print classes inheriting from a class. Right now I have it set to intent service. I don't think anything inherits, or you can see extends from intent service in this particular application, but let me just see. Nope, nothing extends intent service. So let me just do application. This you can do if you want to see if you have a subclass, an application subclass inside of your code. And yep, there you go. That's the name of the class that is inheriting from application. So now I've showed you quite a few different things that you can do to help automate some of your APK analysis. So let's go into a little bit of the code behind JADXecute and how it works, and how you can also add plugins into the JADX-GUI. One thing to keep in note is that if you're adding a plugin in the JADX-GUI, it's actually different than adding a plugin to the command line interface. So those are going to be two different locations. And I think it's easier to add plugins to the command line interface than it is to the GUI, but I'm just going to focus on the GUI part right here. So let's go over to where we actually added our code. So what we do, we go to JADXecute, JADX-GUI, source, main, and then Java JADX-GUI, and we can go to the plugins folder. So if you notice here, there's a couple plugins. I just added all of my user code into this particular JADXecute folder. So this is going to have a few different classes that you're able to see. So if you're adding a plugin, then you will also want to go over to the UI and add all of your code to the main window. So that's the reason why you can see this little icon right here, because I went into the code and I added that. So what you need to do, all you need to do is, grep is your friend in these types of situations. So I'm just going to do JADXecute, and you can follow along whatever code I have added here. Since that's what I did, I followed along to what Quark added and just kind of did the same thing so I could add my plugin too. And you want to make sure you have an icon at that particular folder, and it needs to be an SVG file. And then this is making sure that when you click this, the actual JADXecute window pops up. And so you can just feel free to explore the code right here. But if we want to look at the actual plugin, let's take a look at that. So we'll go back to GUI. And this JADXecute dialog is going to be what's called, this is actually the box of the code pop-up. So that's the code behind here. And this is going to be working on the back end. So see user code. This is an event. So once that run button is called right here, this is actually going to be running that event right here. And what this code is going to be doing is it's going to be using some reflective calls to actually invoke your code dynamically. And you can see that method.invoke. So that method is looking for that particular user code class and that user code method that you implemented inside of your script, inside of the JADXecute window. So that's just a little bit of how it works on the back end. What the most interesting thing is about this particular architecture is you can see if I open up JADXecute and I wanted to import any of the particular JADX classes that already exist, for example, any of the classes that exist in the JADX API or in the JADX core, or in this JADX wrapper right here, you can actually import those and write those just like you would if you were writing into the JADX actual project just normally. So you can just run that dynamically. So just make sure you include these as imports. For example, this jadx-gui JADX wrapper class right here, I'll just show you quickly where that is. This has quite a few methods that you can import into your code right here, and you just need the package name, jadx-gui, and then the name of the Java class that it's implemented in. And I think this one has classes, a lot of those. So this has, here we go. This has, you can actually call all of these public methods from inside of your code already. Just make sure you're calling public methods. But if you're familiar with the JADX API, you might be happy to know that you can use all of your code like this inside of the JADXecute plugin already. So because there are quite a few challenges with using the JADX API, and I don't see too much documentation on how to use it, I'm in the process of going through and adding some helper methods for anything you would commonly like to do during your APK analysis. So if you're curious to see helper methods, you can see I just name all of them helper. So this is helper to help you add comments or rename an object. And this gets called on the back end if you import them into your code. So let's see if we go to rename. I'm actually importing my own code right here, but anything labeled as helper, feel free to just use in your APK analysis. And if you think of anything that you wanted added as a helper method, feel free to make a pull request or make a request. So thanks so much for watching laurieWIRED, everyone. In this video, I showed you my new plugin, JADXecute, which is built as a plugin to the jadx-gui, and it allows you to automate a lot of your different APK analysis. For example, if you wanted to rename methods or insert comments or print all the code inside of a particular class and search that. And it's hopefully will help you automate a lot of your analysis process and speed up your APK reverse engineering. So thanks so much for watching laurieWIRED, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next video. Okay. Jeez.